Hello there, I am here to do a review of sorts of Clair Obscur. It's not really a review, actually. I'm basically just going to talk about the game. I did write a script. It's not that good. I did my best, okay? I'm going to show gameplay in the background. You can see the title. It's the hardest boss in the game. And, yeah. So, Clair Obscur is a fantastic RPG game. One of the absolute best that has been released for quite a long time. And I mean quite like a long time. Main reason it achieves this, in the eyes of not just me, but many people, is because it has a superb balance of a captivating story and intense and fulfilling turn-based fight mechanics. In the background, you are seeing gameplay from Ryuken. He is playing against this game's hardest boss, and this fight has been pushed to its absolute limit by Ryuken. I've chosen some of my own gameplay because I think it's important to show just how refined the combat system in this game actually is, right? Because it's not a typical turn-based. But most players naturally play a game for the story, so I'm going to talk about that first before I go into the details of, how great Clair Obscur's combat is. The story itself is dark, right? It's a very dark story. How it affects you as a player evolves the more that you play the game, the more you learn about the story. Because the biggest thing that caught me off guard is that it drops things on you without giving you time to prepare. I couldn't really feel anything towards some of the earlier story points in the game because I hadn't had enough time with the setting, like the world of the game itself, to really feel the weight of everything that was going on. Like, I understood it in my head, but not in my heart, basically. But obviously, the more that I played, and the deeper that I found myself, in the game and its story and the understanding of the characters and stuff, the more feelings I started to feel, from things that previously I had overlooked or not felt much towards. Just kind of all of a sudden, I started to feel really sad about them because I had a much stronger grasp of everything that is everything that's going on. And this is many hours after they had happened in game, right? Like many hours of gameplay later. Clair Obscur is a game, in my opinion, that plot twist lovers would have wet dreams about. Because it has a lot of twists and turns in it. It has a lot of different moments in the story that you will have the opportunity to start theorizing about things and what's going on. And maybe you'll get proven right in the end, maybe you'll get proven wrong. I know that I got proven wrong quite a lot. But I also got proven right in a few ways as the story kind of developed. But that, alongside the characters have very witty dialogue with each other. They feel very human and genuine. They feel like actual people, and that really helped me feel more invested in the game and its story. Because I think one of the biggest things in any game, and this is both a point for story and combat, is character design, character identity. Metaphor, for example, I didn't really like as much. I haven't finished it yet. I actually had to put it down because it just wasn't really hitting me. Especially with the fact that you can just kind of use whatever archetypes or whatever characters you want. It makes them lack an identity, right? Normally, a character is they will use, in Clair Obscur, this character uses this weapon, they have these moves, this is them, right? This is them as a character, this is what they do, this is how they approach combat, so on and so forth. I fucking love that about games because it makes me feel a lot more invested in the character because I get to see everything that the writer wants me to learn about them and their personality, both in and out of combat. there are a lot of games that have really good stories that get ruined by bad storytelling. Final Fantasy XIV is a good example of this with A Realm Reborn, but that one is a unique one because the storytelling issues mostly come from bad quest design. But I'm choosing to highlight that is to show that bad storytelling can come in a lot of forms, right? So like you may not notice that like something is like bad storytelling at the time until you like see it in hindsight. But then there are some things that you will, just like notice like but then obviously there are going to be things where it's like there's like blaringly like bad story design, but there's like a lot of like good things behind it that you just never notice because the bad story design is just like that. Like the bad storytelling is just like that, like in your face. Sorry, there's something stuck in my throat. Clair Obscur takes the moments of bad storytelling, in my opinion, which is the ones where it just kind of like throws things at you out of nowhere and you don't really get the opportunity to like feel much towards them. It does this right at the start of the game, as well. And I just didn't feel anything towards it. But later on, when you really start to feel the weight of like the world and everything that's going on, like those moments of bad storytelling all of a sudden become absolutely like amazing. But you require that hindsight to be able to really appreciate them. But I love that part about Clair Obscur because it really made me care about the game as a whole. It gave me a reason to look back on everything and to just kind of like re-understand like what had happened, what has been happening. I'm not willing to give spoilers. If I was, I'd talk in more detail about like all of the points. But I want this to reach a larger audience because I want to convince people to play the game. That is one of like the biggest reasons for me making the video. Let's move on to the combat. Clair Obscur literally reinvents turn-based. It adds unique and fun things to turn-based to keep you engaged because turn-based can feel like a slog after some hours of gameplay. The reason why turn-based is so good is because you can have some really incredibly like bullshit fights, but they are perfectly fair because of turn-based simplicity, right? Because turn-based is incredibly in-depth. It achieves this by removing every external factor, like from combat, until you are essentially left with how you set your team up for success versus how the enemy can challenge the tools that you have at that point of the game. The best fights of most RPGs obviously tend to be bosses. You might fight a boss that tests a certain weakness that your team might have at the moment. There's no other enemy to this point has targeted that weakness, right? Such as like a boss that uses status effects heavily, or specifically uses lightning attacks because your main character is weak to lightning, and so far nobody's done lightning damage, and all of a sudden the boss hits you with lightning damage, and you don't have like anything to help with that, right? And so you have to figure out how to work around it. You also see like the main one is like when bosses use status effects, and this tends to happen early on, in order to remind you that these things exist and that they are going to be there going forwards, and that you need a strategy to counteract it. Same with some bosses might be very susceptible to certain status effects, like being put to sleep, right? And maybe you haven't been able to use that status effect enough so far in the course of the game, but then the game goes out of its way to remind you and be like, hey, this is a thing, and some enemies, including bosses, are going to be weak to this or weak to that, and you should take advantage of it when you can. There are also some super fucking challenging fights, like super bosses, that can counter every strategy in one way or another that you have available to that point of the game. They could be completely unaffected by status effects. They could have no elemental weaknesses. like a good way to think about turn-based combat in games is that there's no such thing as an unfair fight in most turn-based games, um, because you're always going to have the tools that you need to win. It's just your job to figure out how, like how to maximize your team for this fight in particular. This goes more into fights that you know have knowledge of ahead of time that you are preparing for. A good example of this is when you are looking at like challenging Pokemon Nuzlocke and preparing for that fight with what you have available and figuring out how. Right. This applies in all RPG games. You just see it a lot in like Nuzlocke, like Emerald Kaizo, because you know every fight is basically a boss fight in that, right? So you have to like heavily prepare ahead of time and so on. But it really just helps to show the beauty of turn-based and how incredible just basic turn-based can be. The reason why all of this is important is because of how Clair Obscur reinvents turn-based, because it adds a completely new dimension to it, which is jumps, dodges, and parries. Parries being the most important. Not just that though, Clair Obscur rids itself of the traditional like mana system and votes for action points instead. And the reason why it does this is to limit your actions within actual combat to balance the fact that you have the freedom to parry and dodge pretty much every single attack in the game, right? Clair Obscur's like combat beauty is understanding how to use AP, like knowing like how to use it AP like correctly, right, for each character, when you should be using it, how you can regenerate it depending on like your character's build, understanding what attacks that you can dodge and what attacks you can parry. And the emphasis is on you the player, not the people that you're playing as, but on you the player, what you are able to like time the dodges well on or time the parries correctly on. As you know have seen from the video so far, you can do some absolutely incredible things with parrying to the point where you can achieve fights as like amazing and as incredibly skilled as this, right? This is literally the hardest fight in the game on the hardest difficulty that Ryuken is doing. He's doing it parry only, and he has done it with every fucking character solo, not in a group, solo. This person has literally pushed it to the limits. This is like the equivalent to like Elden Ring's Let Me Solo Her, but even more like incredible, in my opinion. Like Clair Obscur takes the regular beauty of turn-based and really does just show like a brand new side with these additional mechanics. Like the combat alone should be enough to make people want to play the game, because the combat is just such an incredible selling point. It's something that we have never really. It's something that we've never seen. I can't think of another game that is like this in terms of combat in any game. It feels so amazingly like satisfying, and that like all of your hard work pays off when you finally get like a really long parry string. Right? Especially when it's like a boss that does like a really like big set of like multi-hit attacks. Right? I forgot to mention, by the way, another beauty of like turn-based, both in this game. Well, actually, no, not really in this game, because you don't really get it. You don't really see it in this game. But in turn-based is like being able to understand like how to have like wiggle room to like heal versus like big like enemy AoE attacks as well, right? That's like another like huge thing in turn-based games. This game has a little bit more of a focus on like you tend to get more like individually focused than group focused. And the reason why is because again, they limit your actions in combat, and it's much more focused on like when you are getting attacked, like what can you parry, what can you dodge, right? What are you capable of doing with the tools that they've provided you to be able to beat this fight? It is genuinely the most like satisfying thing to parry like 10 attacks in a row, right? and have them be, returned to the enemy. It it also feels incredible when you have your last remaining member of the team, right? Like everyone else has died. You have literally one character you need to beat this fight, and you just parry everything, just everything. You just don't miss a single parry, and then you win the fight. It feels so good. There's so much dopamine that you can get from that. Especially like in the later stages of the game, because the boss fights do start to get more complex. They start to do more interesting attacks. You also start to get like a better sense of how you as a player are with like the parrying skill and the dodging skill, right? And like knowing like, oh, like I can time the parries for this very well, but I can't for this, so maybe I should parry this and dodge this instead, right? The last thing that I'm going to mention, which it should already be a given just from watching this, but I'm going to speak about it anyways, is how beautiful the game looks. Like the graphics are amazing. It is one of the most lifelike games that I have ever played, that I've ever seen in terms of visuals. The game early as well greets you with some really, really breathtaking views, and that like the beginning of the game when you get to see those breathtaking views makes you feel not just like incredibly hopeful for like wanting to play the game going forwards, but for like the expedition and like them saving the world. It like you get to see this beauty and you get to really feel like, oh, like we're in like some sort of like fantastical like world that we've never seen before, and like we're on this expedition to save the world, and it really makes you feel like I want to see more. I want these characters to succeed, right? I want this expedition to go well. Like I want them to defeat the Paintress and save the world, right? Like I want them to. But yeah, that's all that I could think of when I was writing the script for this video. I'm sorry if I didn't quite talk about everything that I should have. For people that know this game, um, or that maybe I didn't like fully get like all of my points across. I do apologize, but I hope that this video will convince some of the people that haven't played this game yet to invest your time into it, because it might just be like the best RPG ever made in quite a long time now, maybe even of all time. I don't know. I'm not really the one to make that kind of a call, but this game is incredible. Like this game is not. I don't know if I'd say perfect, but this game is a masterpiece. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. This has what? It has a couple more minutes left, so I will leave the last little bit of this fight of gameplay for you to watch, because the combat is just great to look at. It just really is great to look at. And I really do hope that you enjoy the video. And yeah, I do have to apologize again that I'm not using my own gameplay for this, that I'm ripping somebody else's. But one, I don't currently own the game. I had it on. I paid £1 for 2 weeks of PC Game Pass, and I played it on that, and I beat it. And I really want to buy it to do this fight myself. But I've been so invested like in this game that I've gone out of my way to like look up videos like this to watch them, because they're just so incredible to look at. I mean, like just look at this. Like all of these sequential parries, when you're like just watching, you don't really understand like the weight of just how difficult this is to do. But it's so hard. You have to put in so much practice in order to make this work. Like you have to put in so much practice. And Ryukin makes it look effortless. like I'd really love to know like just how many hours this took, just how many hours this person has in the game, because some of the fights in this game, like in terms of just the story fight, not this fight, which is like an optional fight, right? But just in terms of like story fights, some are just so incredibly difficult, but are so incredibly satisfying to beat, especially when you use the parry like mechanics to its full extent. You know, this like this game is just incredible. Like obviously this, the video that is in the background of the fight does spoil some things about the game, right? But it doesn't spoil anything of like enough importance for people to not want to play the game. This game has so much to offer. Like even if you don't care for the combat, even if it's just story, this game is life changing. I will never be able to look at RPG games the same now that I've like played and finished this game. I'm planning on playing and beating my first ever Final Fantasy. Same with my first ever Dragon Quest. And this game just, I'd never notice things that I dislike about RPGs as much if I had never played this game, right? But because I played this game, I've started to like understand just exactly like what lengths the designers and the storytellers have to go to make a game be like a true like top of the line game. Anyways, that's enough from me. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in another video. Peace.